Make it as secure as you know how, and I'll put a seal on it. Now, what do we know about the disciples at this time in their lives? They were huddled together. They were afraid. Many of them were fishermen. None of them trained in martial arts or military science. They would not be able to overpower the Roman guard. They would probably be afraid to break the seal and risk severe punishment, if not capital punishment. So it was not the disciples for sure. Was it grave robbers? Some people say maybe grave robbers came and took the body of Jesus. Very poor theory. You know why? Because towards the end of the passage we read, what did we see? It says the cloth, the burial cloth was still there. As a matter of fact, even the one that went around the head of Jesus was folded up somewhere else. Now, what kind of grave robbers are those? OC? Not OC, OC, obsessive compulsive. Imagine you're a grave robber. Number one is you have to overpower the Roman guards. Let's say you're able to do that. Number two, you're supposed to remove the stone. Not just push it a few inches, but to put it far away. 2-ton stone. Assuming you're able to do that. You're a grave robber. Time is of the essence. Will you say, let's remove the wrapping, and then let's put the wrapping there. Oh, wait. Let's fold it neatly. Maybe the next person can use it. Wait, it doesn't make sense. So grave robbers, no way, Jose. What is the conclusion? Oh, by the way, the Roman guards were conspicuously absent. What does that tell us? Remember, these guys would fight to the death. These guys were trained, these guys were hard, these guys were strong, these guys were, they had tremendous battle experience. Something must have happened for there to be enough reason for the Roman soldiers to be out of the picture. Now, we know what happened. We know it's described in another gospel about how they were overcome by fear. But you see, a Roman soldier would not desert his post because he would suffer the penalty of the person. Let's say he was guarding a prisoner. If that prisoner escaped, whatever was the punishment for that prisoner would be meted on the Roman soldier. If it was capital punishment, then the Roman soldier would suffer capital punishment. He'd be put to death. Another source tells us that a Roman soldier who was found to be negligent, leaving his post, he would be burned alive with a fire started with his own clothes. So folks, there had to be a reason, a very, very good reason for the Roman soldiers to be absent from that place. So this and so many other proofs lead us to only one objective conclusion. People who have tried to disprove the resurrection have come to the same conclusion. And what is that? That Jesus is risen. Okay, kulang sa practice. Next year na lang. But folks, our belief is objective. It is based on truth. It is based on an unequivocal truth that Jesus did indeed rise from the dead. And He lives forever. But He wants that truth to make an impact in your lives and mine. And so now we will go to the 3 encounters with these people. And again, we say, in one encounter, we see sorrow turned into joy, we see fear turned into peace, and even unbelief turned into faith. So let's begin. Moving on now to verse 10 to 16. This is the first encounter. Then the disciples went back to their homes, but Mary Magdalene, stood outside the tomb crying. And as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they've put him." And it says here in verse 14, at this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not recognize that it was Jesus. So many times, just like us, we're facing somewhere, behind us it's someone we know, and then we turn, but sort of absent-mindedly, we don't recognize or we don't see it's a person we know. Okay? So there she is. She's having this conversation. Woman, why are you crying? They've taken my Lord away. And then she turns around, sees Jesus, then she turns back. And then the conversation takes this turn. Woman, this is now Jesus. Jesus calls her. He says, woman, why are you crying? Who is it that you're looking for? And thinking he was the gardener, she said, sir, if you had carried him away, tell me where you put him and I will get him. I can imagine Mary speaking but not looking at Jesus. You know, she's like with her back turned. She's saying, sir, exasperated, sir, pwede ba? If you carried him away, just tell me where you put him and ako na lang ang bahala. I will go get him. Then he calls her by name. Says, Mary, Jesus said to her. And she turned toward him and she cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni! And when she said that, meaning teacher, it's not like some loose greeting we use in school like, hey, teach, hi, prof. It's not anything like that. It means, my great master, the most honorable of all. That's what she meant when she said, Rabboni. Jesus called her by name. He asked her, why are you crying? Is it possible that this morning, Jesus is asking you the same question? Is there something that's weighing your heart down, that's making you feel sorrowful? I don't know what it could be. It could be a health issue, a financial issue, a relationship issue. I don't know what it is. But you've come this morning, and your heart is weighed down. And Jesus is asking you, as it were, woman, man, why are you crying? Why are you sad? Because behind that question is the implication that the power that raised Jesus from the dead, a power not known to man, cannot be manufactured or duplicated, is the same power that can transform our sorrow into joy. Is that the desire of Jesus? Yes, it is, and we know it. Look at what he said in John 15:11. I have told you this, Jesus said, so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. And as we look at this brief statement, we realize some really important things. First of all, it is a joy that Jesus gives. It is a brand of joy that only He can cause to come about. It cannot be manufactured by you or me through willpower or positive thinking. Yes, we can make a decision to rejoice in all circumstances. But it is Jesus supernaturally who supplies that joy. He says, my joy may be in you. And you know what? When His joy becomes our joy, He says, your joy will be complete. Meaning to say, it is perfect. Only as God can do it. It means that the circumstances that cause us to be sorrowful may or may not change. But the joy that Jesus gives is independent of our circumstances. If He does change them for the better, it is a big bonus. But regardless of the circumstances, He says, I want my joy to be in you. It reminds me of a story my wife told me just a couple of days ago. This again is part of her cancer journey, but I don't recall her sharing this particular part with me before. If she did, perhaps I chose to forget it. But this was the time when she had already been operated. She had her mastectomy done. She was at home. She was already starting chemotherapy. And this was the stage of her life when she would be left alone at home because I'd be at work and the children would be in school. And this one day, she looked in the mirror. She looked at herself. She had practically no hair, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 strands loosely attached to her scalp. She was losing weight. And you know the way she described herself to me? Do you remember the Lord of the Rings? You know that character Gollum? That's how she described herself. She said, I look like Gollum. And then she looked at her body and she realized that a part of her was missing, a part which for many women define, at least in part, their femininity. And she was looking at the mirror. And just as the temptation to be sorrowful and dejected was setting in, the Lord spoke to her. Just like Jesus spoke to Mary, how he called Mary by name. The Lord told my wife, Agnes, you are my child. I love you. You are mine. And you know, at that moment, her sorrow turned into joy. Her circumstances did not change, but her heart and her mindset was changed, because she had a life-changing encounter with the risen Lord. And at that point she said, Lord, whether I live or die, it's okay, because I'm yours and you're mine. You are my Lord and my God. You and I need to come to that point where we allow Jesus to turn our sorrow into joy, whether or not he changes the circumstances. And that is only possible because Jesus rose from the dead 2,000 years ago. Don't we ever forget it. It is all anchored on the fact that Jesus rose again and lives today and lives forever. This is what the Lord says in the Old Testament. You might say this is an elaboration of what Jesus said when he said, I want my joy to be in you.